morning. How's it going? Hey, Addie. Morning. Hey, everybody. Good morning, good morning. Oh, your book is arriving today, Nikki? Is that what's going on? That would be nice. Would be nice. I hope it arrives today. That would be great. Hello, hello. How's everyone doing this morning? What's everyone drinking this morning? Anything fabuloso? Not today. Oh, no, sad. Bringing my boys to haircuts, so I'll miss the book. But I want to say hello, Ray. Good morning, my dear. I think it's like 8:30. Maybe something like that. Just stopping in to say hi. I'm off to clean my house. Oh my goodness, yes. What audiobook are you listening to, Jillian? I'm always looking for new good ones. Oh, I guessed very correctly. Wow. That's impressive of me, I must say. Yeah, I believe it, Gore. I believe it. I wish you guys could have seen that. I walked in the other room for a second, and Secret Fiance in bed with the sleep mask, and he pulls it off and goes, "Coffee?" And I haven't finished making the coffee yet, so I was like, "No, not yet." And he goes, "Oh." It was very funny. Anyway, I guess this answers my question. What answers your question? What was your question? I don't remember your question. Isn't this a cute mug? This was a party favorite at my brother's wedding. Everybody got to choose a different mug from a thrift store. It was the most useful, the best party favorite I've ever gotten at a wedding. 10 out of 10 would recommend. There was a table of all different cups, and then it's now. There was a whole huge table with like enough cups for everyone that they sourced from a whole bunch of different thrift stores and like Goodwills and whatever, and you got to pick one, and then throughout the night, if you wanted like coffee from the coffee station or hot chocolate or tea or whatever, you just brought your mug, and that way there were no wasted cups. There wasn't a lot of dishes and stuff for the staff to clean because we all got to take them home with us, and everybody had a cute different mug, so you were never confused about whose cup was whose cup because they were all different. It was really cute. I honestly 10 out of 10 recommend it as a party favor. Yeah. I'm sure it was Rowan's idea. I don't know where they got the idea or like if she heard it from someone or like whatever. Morning, Shandy. But honestly, when I saw it, I was like, that's literally genius. Because party favors at weddings are usually so incredibly pointless. Hey, Cadence. Hello, sweet pea. No, we're not apologizing for emojis. We're happy to have you. You've all been to weddings, right? Like, who's been to a wedding where the party favor is like something, for real, it wasn't that. You go to a wedding and they give you like a party favor that's just, there's just no point to it. Or alternatively, a lot of times the party favors are things I can't have, like macarons or like Jordan almonds or like whatever like that. I can't have those things. And so anyway, I'm babbling for no reason, but the long and the short of it is Right, I remember that, Becca, and that's a good one. My brother's wedding, they gave bottles of wine to parents. Private. That's cool. Not everyone can do that. I mean, that sounds expensive. Well, I guess if the parents made it, it wasn't that expensive. Hey, Nasa. But yeah. I get to see the tiny humans today. We're gonna see my niece and nephew today, which is very exciting to me. I know that's not exciting to everybody, but it is exciting to me. Someone with the name Letty just joined, which is lovely. Well, I first read it as Lefty, and I was like, huh, interesting. But it's just Letty, which is great. Both would be great, honestly. I have no complaints about either. I just wanted to point it out. I thought it was funny. Whatever. Hey, Mabel. What's up? What is up? In fact, Miss Mabel, who just joined the room, is getting married soon. I do not know what she's planning for party favors, if any. Mabel, you don't need to have party favors if you don't want to at your wedding, honestly. We're kind of meeting part way, Anya, at a mall that has a carousel. Morning, Rainbow Dads. Just as a reminder, if you're having a wedding, you don't need to have party favors. Like, the guests coming to the wedding are not coming for the party favors. I promise. The clay series is making try to figure out which clay each time I have. I could tell you some of them, Addie, if you have questions. I know them. And also, there's a new piece to the clay slime series that's going to come out either today or tomorrow of Secret Fiance testing all of them to see which one is beginner / hot hand friendly. And in that video, I kind of talk about which ones are for some. Hey, Hannah. Okay, great. I will look into it. I might not get to Patreon messages today because we are visiting family today, but tomorrow or Monday I will get to those. Playing with Pink Hot Chocolate right now. Pink Hot Chocolate has Modelite and Model Magic in it. Thank you, Hannah. I appreciate that. Yes, Pink Hot Chocolate has both of those in it. Is Elmer's the best brand? Is Elmer's the best brand? That's a really hard question. Often it's the best priced brand. I don't know if I would say it's the best brand. Yes, Addie. Which is the website you get your marshmallows? You mean like marshmallows that I eat or marshmallows for slime? Because there's both. But I'm happy to answer either. If you're talking about the Chalk Zero, the Amazon. Yeah, they're from a company called Chalk Zero. They're here on TikTok as well, and they do respond to questions and stuff. It's CHOC-0. Everything they make is good. Everything. So it's like, I buy everything. For Valentine's Day, Secret Fiance bought me their chocolate, a whole like metal tin of it, so that I could actually have chocolate on Valentine's Day. You know what I mean? Like, it's a great brand. Are you open to sharing your story of how you got to this point in your business? Do you have a specific question? Or, because I mean, it's a pretty long story. But if you have a specific question, I'm always happy to answer questions. I definitely, what I will say, if you're trying to like start a small business or something like that, I may not be the best example, you know what I mean? Only because I took a very unconventional path, and some of the people who started at the same time as me who took a more conventional path have what people would consider more traditional success in their businesses. I'm talking Slime OG, Slime Obsidian, Dope Slimes. They all have big staffs of 10 or more people. They have big warehouses, and millions of dollars, you know, all of them. Don't let them lie to you. They are all millionaires. I possibly could have done that if I had kept going the way that I was going in 2019, but because of the shutdown and how it affected New York City, I had to pivot in a different way than other businesses. And I'm not saying I chose the right way, but I did what I had to survive that time. Yes, exactly, Becca, exactly. Actually, do you guys want to hear something wild? Do you want to hear something absolutely wild? There are some large slimers who are using my name as a paid search term. I found that out this week. Yeah. Because if you search my name and my brand, they come up as sponsored ads. So that's fun. Yeah. So they're paying for Rainbow Slime Girl and Sasha, Rainbow Slime Girl. Me either. I never want employees. It's not fun. I've been making slime for almost 10 years. Yeah. And they're allowed to do that. Technically, there's nothing illegal about that. Any company can buy ad space in any search term, but I searched my own name and is Amanda here? Amanda's favorite, I say favorite sarcastically, Slimer has purchased ad space in my name. Yeah. Isn't that funny? I was like, oh. It made me feel a little good because they're way bigger accounts than I am, but it makes me feel like I have something they don't have. You know what I mean? It made me feel good. A little bit. I don't know. A little snarky. It is a little low. I agree. Legal or not, it is a little low. Kristen, what I was saying was there are some large slimers who run very large multi-million-dollar businesses who have purchased Google Ads for my name. So if you search my name, they have sponsored ads come up with their website because they can afford it and I can't. So they have purchased the ad space for my name. And you know it because it says sponsored. That's how you know. Like if you searched my name and it just came up as an organic search, that would mean it was a free thing that Google just did. But because it says sponsored, you know they paid for it. So, hi guys, I see you and I see that you want to use my name to sell your slime. It's cute. Just as an aside about that, I don't purchase ads because I don't have the funds. So if my name comes up in a search for something, it's just what comes up. I don't pay for, I have not paid for an ad. I think when I worked at Slumu, there were, and it's not Slumu, Slumu has not done this. When I worked at Slumu, there were paid ads with me in them, but that's just because I was a face. You know? Anyway, that's the answer sort of to the question. I also really like being alone in my space. This is a thing that comes up all the time. Like people always ask me like, oh, well, you could maybe hire like a college student or like whatever that wouldn't cost as much to like help you some days a week. I really don't want someone in my house or in my slime room. You know what I mean? Like I like the peace of working alone. And so does that mean that my business can never expand to multi-million dollars? Possibly. And my peace of mind and my mental health is worth that for me at this point because I know what it's like to work for a multi-million-dollar slime company, having done it. Yeah, exactly, Grace. You tested it? Yeah. Well, that's okay, Becca. You're welcomed. I'm talking about like people are saying like hire a person, like not like having a friend. You know what I mean? Like they're like, oh, well, like hire a local college student or like whatever like that. And I don't want that life. I worked at Slumu for years and I ran a staff of 40 people. I have amazing mods. My mods are phenomenal, Sammy. Like literally fan-freaking-tastic. I love them. But I'm talking about like a stranger who, cause like my mods can't get here daily to like help me. You know what I mean? I would pay them absolutely if they could, but they can't. The distance is too far for all of them, including Shira. It's just, it's over an hour in each direction, you know? Exactly. Okay, fly on in. But anyway, the long and the short of it is I ran a staff of over 40 people and I know what that's like. And although I know I'm capable of it, it is not good for me mental health wise. Like I took caring for them so seriously that I literally started to wither away as a person. Yes, Grace, you are welcome. Grace is my little sister. I'll take her. She can live on the couch. Where's Kyle gonna live? You can't both live on the couch. I don't want you to leave Kyle behind. That feels awful. So anyway, working alone suits me. It works. I'm a healthier person. I think we wouldn't get a ton together. You don't know that, Becca. You don't know how hard I work. He wants to be warm. He'll sort it out. Fair enough. Honestly, it's pretty warm here compared to where you are, so maybe he'll make it work. Where will Clone Sasha sleep? Where will Clone Sasha sleep? She is starting to cause problems. Can we talk about her? She is all up in my biz all the time. Can someone take her off my hands? It's like, I look at her and I'm like, babe, what are you doing? And the truth is, she looks right back at me and she goes, what are you doing? And I'm like, way harsh, Ty. Right? Yeah, no, definitely not that, Gigi. Okay, parked and Google didn't find a shopping question, but you know there's a kid's book. Did you? I didn't know that, right? I didn't. We should get that. Oh my gosh. Okay, I've babbled enough. It's time for us to read, and we will buy the book called The Slime Fairy. That's adorable. All right, The Slime Fairy. That's really cool. I want it. I hope it's fun. I don't know what it is, but I hope it's fun. I hope it's a fun book. The artwork for this chapter is out of control. Out of control. They look really mean. Chapter 18, Fairies versus Witches. Once the battery on Bree's cell phone died, Connor and his friends had no way of tracking the time. They felt like they had been trapped in a candy cane cage for days, but whether that was due to the time alteration or their anxiety was anyone's guess. The escapees they'd met under the Bethesda terrace and the captives in the other cages all sat silently. They watched the horrible events around them as if they were trapped in a nightmare they couldn't wake up from. Goldilocks hadn't sit down once they were put inside the cage. Her eyes never left Hero as he bounced around in the baby Bjorn attached to Rat Mary. Eventually, the infant became hungry and started to cry. Instead of giving him back to his mother, Rat Mary tried feeding him a bottle of bright green elixir, a potion Connor and his friends did not recognize. Hero smelled the wicked and wisely refused it. "Attaboy," Goldilocks whispered. After the ovens were filled to capacity with baking gingerbread soldiers, the witches gave the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts of America a new task. All the cauldrons and trays were moved to the side of the great lawn and replaced with piles of candy. The witches gave the Scouts welding tools and ordered them to make weapons out of sweets. The children made candy swords, lollipop axes, licorice whips, candy apple balls and chains, and gummy bear nunchucks. The Scouts piled their finished creations in the center of the lawn, and the arsenal grew a foot taller with every passing hour. To say the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts were exhausted was an understatement. It was a miracle they were still conscious. The children had been working nonstop since before Connor and his friends had even arrived at the witch's base. Many of the Scouts started nodding off as they made the candy weapons that they would quickly set up before one of the witches could punish them. Although Connor's adrenaline kept him alert, watching the tired Scouts put him in touch with his own fatigue. He leaned his head against the bars of candy cane cage, and against his will, he fell into a deep, deep sleep. Hey, babe. Your coffee's right over here. What?
That's it, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Connor dreamed he was standing in his old neighborhood in front of his old house. It wasn't the boxy rental house the twins had moved into after their father died, but the house that their family lived in when he was still alive. It was painted blue with white trim and had so many windows the house looked like it was wearing a pleasant smile. The front yard was groomed to perfection, and there was a large oak tree the twins loved climbing when they were little. Oblivious to the horrors of his waking life, Connor smiled at the lovely scene of his former home. "I must be stressed out about something," he said to himself. "I only dream about this house when I'm upset."
Connor walked up the winding path through his mother's rose garden and entered the house through the front door. He expected to step into a cozy living room with tufted sofas, a small white piano, and all the other furniture they had to sell when they moved. But the front of their old house was barely recognizable because the entire room was covered in papers. Handwritten notes were taped on the walls, pinned to the sofas, and spread across the floor and all around the surfaces. Not an inch of the living room was visible. "That's odd," Connor said. "I must have eaten something funky right before bed to be dreaming of this. I wonder what that was supposed to symbolize." The handwriting was the same on all the notes, and it looked very familiar, but it wasn't his own. Connor pulled one off the wall and read, "Connor, I've been trying to contact you for days, but we're never asleep at the same time. If things escalate to what I'm afraid of, I know you'll be dreaming about our old house eventually. You always do when you're in trouble. Please forgive the mess I made in your subconscious, but it's very important to get this message to you. This won't be an easy read, but please hear me out. As you know by now, I've been cursed, probably with the most powerful curse that's ever been created. It's turned me into an angry, vengeful, and miserable person. It's as if the witches had transformed me into Esmea, and it makes me wonder if they were the ones behind her undoing all along. Unlike the enchantress, the witches have found a way to keep me entirely in their control, and that's what worries me the most. They forced me to do so many terrible things already, but I'll never be able to forgive myself if I harm someone that I love. So I'm begging you, don't give the witches the chance. You can't stop the curse. You can prevent me from doing the unthinkable by stopping me. I understand what I'm asking you is a burden no brother should ever have to bear, but you're the only person I can trust to get it done. You've seen the magic I'm capable of when I'm upset, and if the witches unleash it, the other world could be destroyed. That's why you and you alone must make sure it doesn't happen. By taking my life, you'll be saving the lives of millions, and we both know it's a worthy sacrifice. I've had a wonderful life, Connor. The adventures we shared over the years are what dreams are made of. I can't imagine having a better family, better friends, or better memories. That's why I can willingly return to magic without any reservations. I look forward to watching over you, Mom, with Dad and Grandma at my side. I love you with all my heart, and I am forever proud to be your sister, Alex." Connor knew he was experiencing much more than a dream. He ripped up the note as if it would make the request disappear, but every note in the sitting room was scribbled with the same message. Connor whirled through the house and tore every paper he could get his hands on, but the message rang out loud and clear. Alex was asking Connor to kill her. Even in his sleep, the thought of harming his sister made Connor's heart race, and beads of sweat ran down his face. Soon he felt 2 pairs of hands on him, shaking him to wake up. "Connor, wake up," Jack said. Sorry. Connor gasped and sat up. "How long was I out?" "An hour or 2, Bree said. "And then you started going full exorcist on us." "I was having a nightmare, and it wasn't just any nightmare," Connor said. "Alex has been trying to communicate with me in our dreams. She covered our childhood home in letters asking me to kill her. She thinks the only way that we can save the other world is by taking her life." "That is terrible," Red said. "Just because someone is dangerous doesn't mean they have to be killed to be stopped. Think about the evil queen." "Oh, wait. I suppose that mirror thing was worse than death." "Well, think about the enchanter." "Oh, yeah, no, never mind. But General Mark..." "Yeah, no, he really did die." "Well, the masked man didn't..." "No, that's right. He did. Sorry, there were plenty of examples, or I thought there were plenty of examples. You know, maybe Alex has a point." "We are not killing my sister," Connor said. "I refuse to believe there isn't a way to break the curse that she's under. Alex's emotions are being affected right now, and she's jumping to conclusions. We will find a way to help her." "Yes, we will," Goldilocks said confidently. "I know exactly what's going through Alex's mind right now. It wasn't that long ago that I was in her shoes. She's feeling scared, embarrassed, and guilty, and she thinks there's no coming back from the place that she's at. But luckily for her, she's got us to set her straight." "Oh, it's Goldilocks," Red declared with a snap. "She's the example I was looking for. Goldie was lonely and miserable and an ill-tempered thief when we first met, but thanks to my friendship, she's turned her life around and become a social, happy, and balanced woman." Goldilocks sighed. "What can I say? I owe it all to you, Red." "You're quite welcome," Red said. And what I did for Goldilocks is exactly what we need to do for Alex. If she insists on being killed, then we just have to love her to death. Connor and his friends nodded politely and gazed outside the cage, hoping that Red wouldn't come up with any more nonsensical anecdotes. On the west side of the great lawn, they watched as Charcoline inspected the giant ovens. The gingerbread soldiers had been baking for hours, and Connor had been wondering how much time they needed. Charcoline cackled with delight and rang out a large bell.
Your Excellencies, our army is finished,
Charcoline announced. The Snow Queen and the Sea Witch stood up from their thrones, and the eerie smile spread across their faces.
Release them from the ovens,
the Snow Queen commanded,
and line up the children. They must greet the army they've created.
The witches rounded up the boy and girl scouts and forced them all to stand in groups facing the ovens. Charcoline pulled the door of each oven open and smoke filled the air. Like something straight out of a horror movie, hundreds of gingerbread soldiers slowly crept out of the ovens like zombies, moaning like the ghosts of tortured souls. They were tall, their bodies were burned, and they left behind trails of crumbs as they walked. You must be starving, the Sea Witch hissed. Come back and have a snack and gain your strength before the battle. The gingerbread soldiers sulked toward the group of scouts. The children tried to step back from the frightening cookies, but none of them could move. They looked down and discovered that Tarantuline had sprayed the grass with her web, and the scouts' feet were stuck to the ground. Connor and his friends didn't understand the point of this, but as they watched the gingerbread soldiers approach the children, it all made sense. They're going to feed the scouts to the gingerbread soldiers, Connor exclaimed. That is horrible, Red said. Obscene, Goldilocks said. We have to do something, Bree said. Connor and his friends jumped to their feet and shook the bars of the candy cane cage, but no matter how hard they shook them, the bars never budged. The boy and girl scouts started screaming as the gingerbread soldiers crept closer. The demonic cookies opened their wide mouths and revealed their sharp, candy teeth. Alex, you've got to help those kids, Connor yelled at her. The sister I know and love would never stand by as innocent children were devoured, no matter what kind of curse she's under. Come on, you've got to fight it. You've got to save them. For a brief moment, the expression on his sister's face changed. Alex tightened her brow and clenched her jaw and made fists with her hands. Connor could tell she was fighting the curse with every fiber of her being. Her glowing eyes started to fade. Her floating hair started to fall. The shield she was keeping up around Central Park began to flicker like a dying light bulb until it finally disappeared.
Don't let him distract you,
the Snow Queen screeched at her.
Keep the shield steady.
The command reinforced the curse. The expression faded from Alex's face and her eyes glowed brighter than before. Her hair floated back above her head and the shield reappeared around Central Park. However, the brief moment she had managed to let the force field down had been long enough for a few familiar characters to sneak in through it. A split second before the gingerbread army took their first bite of the Boy and Girl Scouts, a colorful cavalcade suddenly charged the trees. Mother Goose and Merlin swooped onto the great lawn aboard Lester's back, and the Fairy Council soared through the air behind them. On the ground below, Froggy and Rook rode in on Cornelius, while Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table stormed onto the great lawn by foot. Connor and his friends were shocked and ecstatic to see their friends arrive. Am I seeing things, or is Mother Goose with the Fairy Council? Jack asked. It is, and they've come just in the nick of time, Goldilocks cried. And Charlie's with them, Red shouted in disbelief. How is this possible? Connor asked. The Fairy Council were statues. Mother Goose was in Camelot, and Froggy was trapped in a magic mirror. Who cares? Red snapped. After all the crap we've been through, I'm glad for some happiness for a change. The scouts had no idea who any of the newcomers were, but their flashy entrance was enough to distract the gingerbread soldiers from eating them. The unexpected company infuriated the witches beyond belief. They'd come so far they weren't going to let anything stop them now. The Snow Queen and the Sea Witch, Charcoline, Arborist, Tarantuline, Serpentina, and Rat Mary formed a line at the south end of the great lawn, preventing the newcomers from coming any closer. The other witches cowered at the sight of the Fairy Council and hid behind the ovens. The Fairy Council, Mother Goose, Merlin, and Lester landed on the lawn in front of the witches. Froggy, Rook, Cornelius, Arthur, and the Knights of the Round Table joined the fairies and stood by their side. The fairies and the witches stared at one another for a tense moment before anyone said a word. Release these children and surrender your army at once, Emeralda demanded. Or what? The Snow Queen asked. Or we'll remove them for you, Xanthos said. The witches glanced at one another and roared with cocky laughter. Is that so? The Sea Witch asked. And how exactly is that going to happen? After all, fairies can only use their magic to help others. Witch, please, Mother Goose said. We're the ones who wrote the rules, and we can break them just as easily as you can. This is your last warning, Skylene said. You will surrender and go back to the kingdoms where you belong. Don't be foolish and make this worse than it needs to be, Tangerina said.
The witches are not going back to the old world, the Snow Queen screeched. We're sick of your limitations, sick of your regulations, and sick of your laws. Your kind has forced us into the shadows for centuries. So we left the kingdoms before you could suppress us into oblivion. We found our own world to rule as we please, and there isn't room for fairies here.
You mistake our mercy for mistreatment, Emeralda said. If our goal was to exterminate you, we would have done it a long time ago. Your survival is thanks to our generosity and nothing more. We've never suppressed you. We've simply protected the innocent people that you harm without remorse. And the New World isn't going to stop us. Then let's settle this once and for all, the Sea Witch hissed. If the universe isn't big enough for both fairies and witches, it's high time we take our proper place on the magical food chain. Sisters, if we want a world for ourselves, we must destroy the fairies. The witches charged toward the fairies, and an overdue battle of good versus evil began. Each member of the fairy council paired with a witch and spread out across the great lawn for a duel. Arthur and the knights of the Round Table dashed toward the gingerbread soldiers with their swords raised. The soldiers collected weapons from the candy arsenal and fought the young king and his knights. The gingerbread soldiers were easy to disarm and slay, but they greatly outnumbered Arthur and his knights. Battling the giant cookie wasn't going to be a piece of cake. Alex's location was no longer a mystery to any of the newcomers. She was clearly visible on a hill at the north end of the great lawn. So while the fairies and the witches were dueling, Froggy hopped around the great lawn looking for Connor and the others. The only thing on Rook's agenda was getting Alex to safety, so he cautiously steered Cornelius through the fighting knights and soldiers towards the hill. Mother Goose and Merlin raced to the group of boy and girl scouts. With a snap of their fingers, the spiderwebs around the scouts' feet and the children were free. Scouts' feet vanished and the children were free. As I said to the Children's Crusade of 1212, get out of here, kiddos. This isn't your fight, Mother Goose said. In true boy and girl scout fashion, before running to safety, the scouts ran to the candy cane cages and freed the witches' prisoners. Oliver used a lollipop axe to slice off the lock on the cage that held Connor and his friends.
Hey, I know you, Oliver said. You guys were on my flight.
Oliver, you've got to get all these other people out of here, Connor said. Take everyone to the south corner of the park and you'll find an opening to an abandoned subway tunnel at the base of the hill. Crawl into the tunnel and go as far away from here as you can.
But what about you and your friends? Oliver asked.
We'll be okay, Connor said. Believe it or not, we're actually used to this kind of stuff. Now hurry, before the witches see you. Oliver nodded and saluted at Connor. Once he got their attention, Oliver led the scouts, their troop leaders, and the escapees from the Bethesda Fountain and all the other captives of the Great Lawn towards the southwest corner of Central Park. What should we do now? Get Alex? Bree asked. Connor glanced up at his sister, but she hadn't moved a muscle since the battle started. She'll be fine for the time being, he said, but those dudes fighting the gingerbread soldiers look like they could use our help. Connor and his friends dashed to the arsenal of candy weapons. Connor and Goldilocks picked up candy cane swords. Jack took a lollipop axe. Bree chose a licorice whip. And although she had no idea what they were, Red selected the gummy bear nunchucks. Once they were armed, Connor and his friends joined Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table and helped them battle the gingerbread soldiers. You must be Alex's brother, Arthur said as he decapitated a soldier. That's me, Connor said. Who are you? I'm King Arthur, and these are my Knights of the Round Table, Arthur said. From Camelot? Arthur asked. What are you guys doing in Central Park? Long story short, I'm sort of your sister's boyfriend, the young king disclosed. Boyfriend? Connor asked as he sliced a soldier in half. Alex never mentioned she had a boyfriend. Well, we haven't defined the relationship yet, Arthur said. This surprised Connor more than anything else in the park so far. Well, if we survive this, you and I are going to have a chat about your intentions, he warned. As their friends fought the gingerbread soldiers, Jack and Goldilocks saw Rat Mary and Hero on the other side of the lawn. The couple moved through the soldiers in the direction of their son, slicing through them as if they were overgrown weeds. Bree seemed to be enjoying the fight. She giggled as she swung the licorice whip around her like a lion tamer. Is that your girlfriend? Arthur asked Connor. Sort of, Connor said. We haven't defined our relationship either. Bree cracked the whip with such gusto that all the gingerbread soldiers were afraid to get near her. Even Connor kept his distance. Wow, Arthur said. If I were you, I'd have someone ask her about her intentions. Red tried getting involved in the fight as her friends, but she had no idea how to use her gummy bear nunchucks. Every time she tried swinging them, she ended up whacking herself in the face. The awkward movement made it easy for her to spot in the crowd. Red, where are you? Froggy said. I've been looking everywhere for... Red, there you are, Froggy said. I've been looking everywhere for you. Charlie, she exclaimed. Oh, I missed you so much. Red jumped into Froggy's arms and kissed him all over his green face. A gingerbread soldier snuck up behind the couple and raised his lollipop axe above their head. Red was outraged by the interruption. Excuse me? Can't you see we're in the middle of a reunion? She asked. Instead of using her gummy bear nunchuck, Red smacked the gingerbread soldier in the face with her purse. The blow knocked off the soldier's head and its body crumpled to the ground. I swear, these purchases are the gifts that keep on giving, Red said. Connor saw Froggy and worked his way through the gingerbread soldiers to greet him. Froggy, I'm so glad to see you, he said. Likewise, my friend, Froggy said. I spent days searching for you. I was trying to warn you about the literary army that was coming, but they beat me to it. Fortunately, your mother and the characters from your stories have also arrived, and they're dealing with the army as we speak. Thanks for the update, Connor said. Let's hurry and defeat the witches so we can join them, because they're going to need our help. While Connor and his friends finished off the gingerbread soldiers, the duel between the fairies and the witches were intensifying by the second. Rosette and Arborus were going head-to-head in a heated brawl. The witches pointed at the grass, and the large tree's roots snapped up from the ground and knocked the fairies backward. Rosette retaliated by throwing a handful of seeds at the witches. A family of Venus flytraps immediately rose out of the dirt, and Arborus's feet were pinned to Arborus's feet and pinned the witch to the ground with their snapping mouths. Bugs crawled out of Arborus's skin and chewed on the flytraps until the witch was free. That's a horrific thing to imagine. Oh my God. Arborus then hit the ground with her fist and sent a massive wave through the grass that knocked Rosette on her back. The fairy waved her hand, and a cluster of rose bushes with enormous thorns grew in a circle around the witch. Rosette spun her finger, and rose bushes began to twirl around Arborus like the blades of a blender. The witch screamed as the thorns scratched and sliced her. By the time the roses stopped spinning, Arborus had been decomposed into nothing but a pile of mulch. Whoa. Every rose has its thorn, Rosette said, and blew on her fingertips like it was a smoking gun. Tangerine and Tarantuline were locked in eye to eye as they focused. The witch kicked the fairy with all four of her legs and hit her with all four of her hands. A swarm of bees flew out of Tangerine's beehive and circled Tarantuline, stinging her arms and legs wherever they could. The witch sprayed the bees with the spiderweb and then showered the fairy with it, sticking Tangerine's whole body to the ground. Tarantuline then stood over the fairy, preparing to strike her with her long fangs, but Tangerina managed to free one of her hands from the web, and she pointed at the witch. Honey erupted from the fairy's finger and covered Tarantuline from head to toe. I gotta tell you, saying Tarantuline and Tangerina so many times in the same sentences is like a tongue twister. The honey quickly hardened and trapped the witch inside the golden blob.
It's honey that attracts flies, darling, Tangerine said.
You should try it. Across the great lawn, Xanthos was in a battle with the Snow Queen, and unfortunately for him, nothing about their fight was heated. The witch pointed her cane at the fairy, and sharp icicles flew out like bullets. Xanthos dived out of their path, but there were too many to avoid. One icicle pierced his shoulder, and another pierced his thigh, pinning poor Xanthos to a tree. The fairy screamed in agony, and the witch cackled with satisfaction. The flames on Xanthos' head and shoulders spread across his body until he was completely covered in fire and icicles impaling him, and they melted away. The witch lifted the cloth covering her eyes, and an icy chill blew out from her empty eye sockets. Xanthos shielded himself with a wall of fire, but he struggled to keep it up. The wind grew stronger and stronger while the temperature became colder and colder. It was so cold that the Snow Queen's face started to freeze, and soon her whole body was covered in ice.
I always loved extinguishing little flames like you, the Snow Queen said.
Do you know what they say about old icy queens? Xanthos asked. The colder the heart, the easier she melts. A ball of fire appeared in Xanthos' hand, and he threw it at the Snow Queen. A fireball collided with the witch and exploded. The heat was so severe that it melted all the ice covering the Snow Queen's body, and the witch vanished. The Snow Queen's polar bears were furious at seeing their mistress destroyed. They charged across the great lawn, intending to rip Xanthos limb from limb. Mother Goose and Merlin stepped into the bears' paths and blocked the beast from attacking the fairy. My dear, I think it's time to grin and bear it, Merlin chuckled. Now, Merlin, your jokes are unbearable, Mother Goose laughed. The couple transformed into a pair of ferocious grizzly bears and wrestled the polar bears to the ground. After a series of body slams, headlocks, and pile drivers, the polar bears gave up and tapped out in the fight. In the opposite corner of the great lawn, Emeralda had a beastly challenge of her own. The sea witch snapped her claws, and a wall of salty water surrounded Emeralda. The witch snapped her claws again, and a wall filled with great white sharks. Emeralda was trapped. The sea witch opened her mouth, and the enormous electric eel slithered out from the back of her throat. Oh my God. Ooh. The eel wrapped around Emeralda and shocked the fairy as it pinned her arms to her sides. The witch then pelted Emeralda with pieces of coral that flew over the fairy and confined her even more tightly. You won't get away with this, Emeralda shouted. You can surround me with every fish in the sea, but good will always prevail over evil. That's the beauty of this world, the sea witch hissed. In the other world, evildoers can win. The sea witch snapped her claws together, and the wall of water caved in on the fairy. The water formed a sphere around Emeralda, and she couldn't breathe. The fairy struggled against her fishy constraints, but she couldn't break free. Emeralda's eyes fluttered shut as she appeared to drown. Before she celebrated her victory, the sea witch wanted to make sure the fairy was dead. She snapped her claws again, and the coral and eel disappeared, and the fairy's lifeless body rolled out of the watery sphere. As the witch leaned over her, Emeralda suddenly snapped back to life and grabbed the sea witch's claw. The witch's body was infected by Emeralda's touch, and inch by inch the sea witch was covered in an emerald glow that transformed her body into sea glass. When the transformation was complete, Emeralda blasted the sea witch with a bright green light, and she burst into 1,000 pieces, showering Central Park with tiny shards of sea glass. The sea witch's sharks angrily lunged toward Emeralda, and a giant sphere of salt water rolled toward her. Before the sharks could harm the fairy, Mother Goose and Merlin pushed Emeralda out of the way and jumped inside the sphere. The couple transformed into a pair of giant squids and beat the sharks senseless. Nearby, Violetta was having a difficult time keeping up with Serpentine's swift attacks. The witch wrapped her tongue around the fairy's ankle and dragged her through the mud. In retaliation, Violetta simply threw a small rock at the witch, but missed. Serpentine flung Violetta into the air, and the fairy landed with a heavy thud on the ground. Once again, all Violetta did to defend herself was throw another rock at the witch, and it, too, missed by almost a foot. The fairy repeated her poor defense over and over, but it only annoyed her opponent.
Oh, come on. You're not even trying. Have some self-respect and fight back,
Serpentine hissed. Violette smiled and pointed up at the sky above Serpentine. The witch looked up and saw that all the rocks were hovering above her head, but they had all grown to the size of boulders. Violetta snapped her fingers, and the boulders collapsed on top of Serpentine. Across the lawn, Skyline was clashing with Charcoaline, a geyser of lava erupting from Charcoaline's mouth, and she aimed it toward the fairy. Skylene reached out her hand and blocked the lava with an equally powerful geyser of water. The water made a rainbow appear over the great lawn, not that anyone had a moment to spare to enjoy it. Charcoline used all her strength to hit Skylene with the most powerful geyser she could muster. The witch's whole body was filled with lava, and it flowed through the cracks of her ashy skin. Skylene spotted Central Park Reservoir out of the corner of her eye, and she had an idea. The fairy kept her watery geyser flowing with one hand and pointed to the reservoir with the other. An enormous wave of cold water spilled out of the reservoir and drenched everyone and everything coming across the great lawn. When Skylene looked up, Charcoline had disappeared. The fairy looked at the ground and discovered that her opponent had been cooled into a mound of singed charcoal. Not only did Skylene's wave defeat the witch, it also dissolved the remaining gingerbread soldiers. Connor and his friends and the knights from Camelot cheered in victory. With the soldiers gone, Rook and Cornelius were free to approach the hill where Alex stood. The lion statues from the New York Public Library growled down at them, and there was no way they were getting past patience and fortitude. Yeah, Becca, I heard that. Cornelius, you stay here and distract the lions, Rook said. I'm going to sneak up the hill behind them. Meanwhile, Jack and Goldilocks raced to the end of the great lawn where Rat Mary was dueling with Coral. The witch repeatedly scratched and bit the young fairy, but Coral was afraid that if she fought back, she'd injure the infant strapped to the witch's chest. Give us back our son, you miserable rodent, Jack said.
If you think I'm miserable, you should meet my friends, Rat Mary said.
The witch placed both hands on the ground and summoned all the rats and mice from Central Park. The rodents came in droves until there were thousands and thousands at Rat Mary's command. The witch pointed at Jack, Goldilocks, and Coral, and the rodents attacked. The rats and mice crawled over their bodies and scratched their faces and chewed on their hair. Jack and Goldilocks tried to knock the vermin off with their weapons, but there were too many to keep up with. Hey, Buckteeth McRabies, Mother Goose called. Why don't you pick on someone your own size? Rat Mary roared with laughter.
What are you gonna do, Granny?
Mother Goose cringed at the insult. You know, I've been called a lot of names in my day, but you want to hear what they used to call me in Hamelin?
Let me guess, Rat Mary said. Was it Mother Time, Rip Van Winkle's Old Woman River, Lady Macbeth?
Not even close, Mother Goose said. They called me the Pied Piper. Mother Goose removed a small pipe that was tucked into her bonnet. She pressed the instrument against her lip and played a charming melody. As soon as the first three notes rang out, all the rats and mice attacking Jack and Goldilocks and Coral froze. They immediately formed a line and scurried across the great lawn towards the reservoir. The rodents dived into the water and never resurfaced. Rat Mary's eyes widened with fear. She scanned the great lawn and discovered that the only witches left were the ones hiding behind the ovens. It was the witches who were outnumbered.
Sisters, we must leave this foul place, Rat Mary declared. If the fairies want the other world so much they can have it, we'll find another world to call home, but now it's time to fly!
Rat Mary held out a hand, and a broomstick flew into it. The witches cowering behind the ovens quickly retrieved their own brooms.
Lower the shield, girl!
Rat Mary shouted at Alex. Alex did as she was told, and the force field surrounding Central Park disappeared. The witches straddled their brooms and rose into the air like a flock of crows. Rat Mary led the witches towards the New York City skyline with Hero dangling from her chest. Hero! Goldilocks shouted. Jack whistled for Lester, and the gander hurried toward him. Lester, we need your help, Jack said. Follow those witches. Jack and Goldilocks hopped aboard Lester's back, and the giant bird soared into the air and followed the witches toward the city. Now that the shield was down, everyone was finally free to leave the park, but they were also vulnerable to the dangers outside it. A sniper stationed on the rooftop of the building just east of the park had been waiting all night and morning for this moment to come. General, I've got a clear shot of the girl from the library, he said into his radio. She seems to be the one generating the shield over the park. Do I have your permission to shoot before it reappears? We're a little busy with the flying monkeys and the flying ships over here, the general replied. Fire at your own discretion. Target is locked, the sniper said. Preparing to fire in 3, 2, 1. The sniper pulled the trigger, and in a split second, one bullet traveled more than 1,000 feet from the rooftop, piercing the beating heart of an unsuspecting, misunderstood teenager. Connor and his friends heard the gunshot echo through the park and looked up at the hill in terror. "No!" Connor exclaimed. The sound of her brother's panic voice broke Alex's curse for a brief moment. She looked down at the great lawn and saw Connor, Bree, Froggy, Red, Cornelius, Arthur, Mother Goose, Merlin, and the Knights of the Round Table and the Fairy Council staring up with horrified expressions. But they weren't looking at her. Alex turned to her left and saw Rook standing by her side, dripping with blood from a small hole in his chest. "Alex," he gasped, I hope this will make things right." Rook collapsed and rolled down the side of the hill and never got up. He had gone to the hill hoping to save Alex. Tragically, his mission was even more of a success than he'd intended. Alex stared down at her friend's body in shock. "Rook?" she said softly. "Rook, please get up. Please get up." The farmer's son didn't move, and Alex realized that her worst nightmare had come true. Someone she had loved had been hurt. A tsunami of emotions rushed through her body, and the wish's curse returned. Her eyes glowed brighter than ever. Her hair flickered above her head like the flames of a rocket, and the power she had never possessed before surged through her veins. Alex pointed at the sniper in the distance, and the building he stood on imploded underneath him. The man jumped and made it to a nearby roof only a moment before he would have plummeted to the ground. "Alex, please, we need you to calm down," Connor yelled up the hill. "You have to get control of your emotions before they control you." His sister clapped her hands, and a bright spiral of light like the Milky Way galaxy appeared above her. Alex and the lion statues disappeared into the light, and the spiral whirled out of Central Park. With no witches to control her, the curse had transformed Alex into a destructive force without bounds, and she was loose in New York City. "We need to find her at once," Esmeralda told the others. "If we can't find a way to break the curse, Alex could destroy the city and maybe herself in the process." Connor, Bree, Froggy, Red, Mother Goose, Merlin, and the Fairy Council ran out of Central Park and headed in the direction of Alex's light. Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table knelt beside Rook's body to pay respects. Cornelius nudged his friend with his snout and waited for him to wake, but Rook never opened his eyes again. That's very sad. It's very sad. That's really harsh. Yeah, Naisa, it was hard to hold it together. That's our first casualty. We've not had a casualty in this series yet. Really harsh. Yeah. R.I.P. Rook. He was a good one. He made some mistakes, but he was a good guy, and he was a good character, and we will miss him. Maybe we will just design a slime in his honor. I can't, Becca. We're going to see the kids. I gotta go see the kids, you guys. We're going to see my niece and nephew. It's important. I gotta go see the babies. I don't get to see them that much. Okay. Well, if you need a good laugh while you're waiting for me to get back, you can read my book instead. It's funny and a lot less heartbreaking, I think. All right. Well, I'll see you guys later. That was really sad. You just got it, Alexa? Oh my gosh, I hope you love it. I will see you guys later. I hope you have a, I won't be back in time, Naisa. But anyway, if anyone on here is new, my book's called The Prince of Oregon. Go get it. But I'm gonna go see some children, and there will be a continuation of the Butter Slime series, but one with Secret Fiance going up later today as soon as I edit them. And I will see you all on Monday morning for book club. Bye, guys.